Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thanks.
This concludes the first hearing for House Bill 720. Now I'd like to call up House Bill 611. First to provide proponent testimony is Jason Cabas. Welcome to committee. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Chairman Thomas, Vice Chair Swearingen, Ranking Member Sonnenberg, and members of the House Judiciary Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide proponent testimony on substitute House Bill 611. My name is Jason Cabas, and I am an owner of Diamond Science Holdings, a licensed standalone processor operating out of Dayton, Ohio. I would like to thank Representatives Stewart and Callender for sponsoring this important legislation. House Bill 611 would provide targeted relief to Ohio standalone processors, also known as the orphaned processors. These are primarily small Ohio businesses that have become progressively locked out of the cannabis supply chain despite remaining licensed, compliant, active participants in Ohio's regulated market. When the General Assembly enacted House Bill 523 back in 2016, processors were designed to serve an essential role in the supply chain because raw cannabis sales were prohibited under House Bill 523, meaning cannabis generally had to move through a processor before ultimately reaching dispensaries and Ohio patients. Processors were originally intended to be an indispensable component of the supply chain, and the licensing structure reflected that significance. Until recently, processors paid $100,000 in annual licensing fees, which were among some of the highest in the program. However, the economic landscape established under HB 523 shifted significantly as Ohio's regulatory framework evolved to permit cultivators to sell raw cannabis directly to dispensaries, bypassing processors and substantially undermining the core economic function of the processing license. When the market first launched, cultivators gained direct access to retail demand, while standalone processors that were not vertically integrated remained dependent on third-party cultivators for biomass supply. As the market matured and competition increased, the lack of direct supply access created a severe supply imbalance for independent processors. Biomass pricing spiked dramatically by a factor of 10 to 15x, while availability became increasingly scarce. The cost of and lack of access to necessary supply made it extraordinarily difficult for standalone processors to survive, let alone compete. It should be noted that the price in biomass did temporarily settle back to original market conditions prior to the passage of Issue 2, but when Issue 2 passed, that price increased by a factor of 3.5 to 4x. At the same time, retail shelf space became progressively harder for smaller Ohio operators to secure as portions of the retail market consolidated to larger and increasingly vertically integrated operations. Issue 2 further widened that imbalance by distributing additional dispensary licenses to cultivators, while standalone processors received no corresponding relief. As a result, processors became increasingly separated from both supply and demand. The result today is a structural disadvantage that no amount of compliance or operational efficiency can realistically overcome. We competed for and won licenses, followed the rules established by the state, invested millions into our operations, created jobs, and continued operating in good faith while the structure of the market materially shifted around us via actions outside of the legislative process. Corrective legislative action is needed. Substitute House Bill 611 provides a carefully tailored corrective measure through two components. First, the bill grants each eligible processor a paired cultivator license, allowing for a small canopy of just 5,000 square feet. This new classification was created to harmonize with the licensing framework established by SB 56 after the elimination of the prior Level 3 cultivator classification. Importantly, the scale of this relief is extremely modest. If every eligible processor participates and fully builds out their 5,000 square feet, the total increase in cultivation capacity would amount to less than one existing Level 1 cultivator and represent approximately 2.5% of Ohio's total statewide canopy. Second, the bill authorizes one dispensary license per eligible standalone processor, allowing those processors meaningful access to the retail market and a realistic opportunity to restore economic viability. The requested license allocation would not exceed the current cap set by Issue 2 and by SB 56. Eligibility is also carefully restricted. Relief is limited to processors licensed before December 7th, 2023, and only to processors without common ownership with licensed cultivators. I want to emphasize that House Bill 611 is not a broad market expansion. It is a narrow and carefully tailored effort to restore fairness and competitive viability to a small group of longstanding Ohio businesses that have been materially disadvantaged through the evolution of Ohio's cannabis regulatory framework. This bill allows for fair market competition. Without legislation, the deck remains permanently stacked against standalone processors that played by the rules, made substantial investments, maintained compliance, and continued operating while the structure of the market shifted around them without legislative intent. I respectfully request your support and consideration of House Bill 611. Thank you for your time and attention. And although we may be questioned out, I would be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? Representative Callender.
I guess, do you want a question?
I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone on the committee may have.
That wasn't my question. Would you like a question?
Sure.
Are you happy with the bill as it stands, or do you think it needs modification?
In a perfect world, we would love to have more than 5,000 feet of canopy, but understand that, there need to be concessions in order to get things through the legislative process. So yeah, I would like to have more than 5,000 feet of canopy, but we're willing to settle with a modest amount of canopy just so we can have some control of supply. We can't operate if we don't have supply. We can't operate if we don't have demand. Some is better than zero.
Perfect answer. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman.
Our next witness is Glenn Mert. Welcome to committee. Please proceed when you're ready.
Chairman Thomas, Vice Chair Swearingen, Ranking Member Sonnenberg, and members of the House Judiciary Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony in support of House Bill 611. My name is Glenn Mert, and I am an owner of 100% Labs, a licensed standalone cannabis processor in Ohio. My company employs approximately 30 people and is located in Mount Orab, Ohio, a town of roughly 4,500 people. In a community our size, these 30 jobs make a meaningful impact on our local families and our local economy. I am here today to ask for your support of House Bill 611 because Ohio's standalone processors have been systematically locked out of the cannabis supply chain through market structures we cannot realistically compete against. This is not due to lack of compliance, effort, or product quality. The problem is that vertical integration, accelerated through Issue 2 and reinforced by current regulations, has created a marketplace where independent processors are effectively excluded from both supply and retail access. Under Ohio's original medical marijuana framework, processors played a central role in the market. At that time, cannabis products were required to pass through licensed processors before reaching consumers. Businesses like mine invested heavily based on that statutory structure by building facilities, hiring employees, developing products in reliance on the role the law established for processors. But over time, administrative changes and the expansion of vertically integrated operators fundamentally changed the marketplace. Today, large national multi-state operators in Ohio increasingly control cultivation, processing, and retail distribution. That has left Ohio standalone processors squeezed out on both sides of the market. We struggle to access affordable biomass, and we struggle to secure shelf space in dispensaries that prioritize products from their own vertical integrated multi-state partners. The result is a structural disadvantage that independent Ohio processors cannot overcome simply by working harder or producing better products. We have spent years trying to solve these challenges without government intervention, but the current market structures leaves very little room for fair competition. The numbers make it clear. Biomass prices have increased by as much as 1,000% to the standalone processors since the vertically integration took hold. making it economically difficult for standalone processors to obtain raw materials at competitive prices. Retail demand for third-party processed products has dropped dramatically by nearly 90%, not because consumers reject our products, because independent processors are increasingly denied meaningful access to dispensary shelf space. My biggest competitors for buying biomass in the state comes from large national companies buying up all available biomass on the market to obviously secure their share of the market. Issue 2 further widened this imbalance. Many existing operators received additional opportunities and licenses under the adult use framework, while standalone processors received no comparable benefit or relief. House Bill 611 is a measured and targeted solution. Importantly, the bill does not dramatically expand the market. It does not create a large number of new licenses, nor does it overhaul Ohio's cannabis program. Dispensary licenses remain capped at 400, with only approximately 209 dispensaries currently open. The bill adds only a limited amount of additional cultivation space, roughly 2.5%. What the bill does is give existing compliant Ohio processors a fair opportunity to compete with vertically integrated multi-state operators. The businesses impacted by the legislation represent a small group of roughly 12 independent Ohio processors. We are Ohio's entrepreneurs who invested in the state's regulated cannabis industry in good faith and under the framework originally established by the legislature. We followed the rules, we made substantial investments, and created jobs in our communities. We are simply asking for a level playing field. Supporting standalone processors is also good for Ohio consumers. Greater competition increases product diversity, improves quality, expands supplies. It helps reduce prices. That benefits both adult use consumers and medical patients who rely on affordable, quality cannabis products. House Bill 611 is a reasonable correction to the market imbalance that threatens the survival of the small Ohio cannabis businesses. It supports competition, strengthens consumer choice, and helps preserve opportunities for independent operators in Ohio's regulated market. We, myself and my employees, ask for your support and timely consideration of this legislation. Thank you for your time and attention, and I would be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for the witness?
Question?
I'll ask the question the Representative Callender asked before. Are there any, in a perfect world, or in your perfect world, would you like to make any additional changes to this bill?
You know, very similar to what Jason said, I would love to have more canopy space, but having 5,000 gets me into playing field. You know, you let me play the game and I'll compete. 5,000 does me justice. It gives me enough to get some products on the shelf. And then that also allows me to compete for the biomass available through the other larger cultivators. So it does open up the marketplace, absolutely. So would I like more? Yes. I'm absolutely ecstatic with 5,000. I'm one of the people who pushed for 5,000. So.
Any other questions? Representative Callender for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through the chairman. If we pass this, when we pass this, do you believe a likelihood that we will see, with more entry into the market, more access into the market for folks who are now the standalone processors, that we will see a reduction in prices for consumers for products because of extra competition?
Through the chair, to the representative, absolutely, prices will come down. You're talking 12 people who do not have access to meaningful shelf space. Once our products get onto the shelves, prices will come down. Absolutely. The medical patients need that in Ohio. Yeah, absolutely.
Ranking Member Sonnenberg for a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you for testifying today and for the jobs you bring to your town and to the state. And this is to clarify, and it might be, if you don't know, I can defer to my colleague, Rep. Callender, because he will know, I believe. This bill is only for the medical patients, not for integrating the standalone processors like your company for medical, not for recreational. No?
It would be
The whole thing? Okay.
through the chair.
Because on the agenda, it says issue medical marijuana processor cultivation dispensary license. I guess that's labeled wrong, or?
Yeah, no, Mr. Chairman, if I may help
Please, yeah.
clarify, when the original processing license were issued years ago, we only had a medical program. So a lot of them were issued under the medical registration. But then as we have progressed, those licenses have now become dual licenses.
Okay. Thank you both.
Good. Any follow-up, any additional questions for the witness? You're good?
Through.
Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
This concludes the second hearing for House Bill 611. Now I'd like to call up House Bill 528 for its third hearing. We received no testimony for this bill. This concludes the third hearing for House Bill 528. Seeing no further business, the committee stands adjourned.
That's good, y'all. So I don't know how many people are on here watching that, but that was released on the 13th. And so obviously if you are, a part of the Ohio cannabis community, you understand that that was not geared towards anything but people who already have licenses. So those are standalone processors who already have standalone processing businesses licensed by the state. And essentially they are trying to get cultivation space and dispensaries so they can actually partake in the industry competitively because right now they don't have access, right? As a processor, you have to get product from cultivators to be able to make, topicals, tinctures, pills, whatever form of processing those edibles, extracts. And so that's what they are fighting for right now. That's what House Bill 611 is. So for average consumers, I don't think that's really going to help us. I just heard them say, do you think this is going to bring prices down? Probably not. Because again, we are still a state run by multi-state operators. The Attorney General, Dave Yost, who just resigned, filed a lawsuit, calling the multi-state operators a cartel. So I don't know how that's going to pan out. So again, for average consumers, for small business owners, that's not going to help any of us, right? That's going to help people who already have licenses and things like that. So I just wanted to share that because it came across my feed earlier and I just wanted to share it with the community. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. I see we got Robert. Let's see. Thank you for posting this information for Ohio for sure. Again, this is all like open to the public, right? It's literally just through ohiochannel.com. And the only reason I started doing that was because a few years ago, I got wind that they had these live feeds inside the State House, but they weren't streaming live. But again, the people should know, right? Like we live in a state of 11.8 million people. And what goes on at the State House, that's where the money moves. That's where the decisions are being made. That's where our tax money funnels through. There was just an article that just said that the state has over like $1.8 billion in excessive tax revenue that they don't know what to do with, right? I was just at a meeting for One Ohio Recovery Foundation, which now is going to put $20 million towards an education campaign for pregnant and expecting women and youth. But One Ohio Recovery Foundation or fund was all geared, this money from a lawsuit from the opioid and pharmaceutical industry, right? But now, instead of teaching about cannabis as an alternative, they want to educate folks on how smoking weed could be bad for the baby and bad for the mother, right? But we're not teaching that there's alternatives to, combustion, right? And so again, a lot of these people that are in these positions of power and influence in the state of Ohio have no clue what they're talking about when it comes to cannabis in totality, right? So it's important that us as citizens, average everyday citizens, are aware. Even if you're a small business owner, right? Like these processors, they still had to spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars for their processing facilities. You know what I mean? So they're still not the smallest of the small, right? They're not super craft grows, right? These are people that still had access to millions of dollars in capital to be able to fund licensing, to be able to fund the build out of their infrastructure for their companies. So it's important that as citizens, we stay aware of what's going on in our state. So here's the website. I just want to show y'all because I'm not doing anything special. You know what I mean? Like I do this because it was like people should know. I was watching it and I knew people weren't paying attention. So I just started sharing via Ohio Cannabis Report. So this is actually the website right here. And all the stuff is live streamed and it's recorded. So you can go back and watch. What's today's day? Yeah, so that was last week. So yeah, this is the Ohio channel. So all you got to do is go to ohiochannel.org and you can literally, watch all the different hearings from all the a lot of the cannabis stuff has gone through the House Judiciary Committee for House bills. So even like when we were doing opponent testimonies against SB 56, all of those are still on here. I've streamed all of those on our channel as well. So you can go back into our archives on Ohio Cannabis Report on YouTube and find a lot of this information as well. But yeah, they just live stream all of this stuff. And so it's important. Like, a lot of people, oh, I can't make it to the state house. Oh, I can't. There's so many excuses. Like literally you can watch it, you can literally watch it on here. And, make sure you contact these people. These are your state representatives, these are your senators, your representatives, and they're the ones deciding where the money goes. But yeah, appreciate you guys supporting and tapping in. Make sure you guys like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate your support. Sorry for the graininess on my camera. Right now, I'm not using my my webcam. I'm using my computer camera, so it's a little grainy. Still need that equity fund money for sure. I mean, we've just hit over $1.3 billion in non-medical sales. Obviously, they took away that 36% tax revenue and put it in the general revenue fund for the state. So that's over like 50 million or something like that. That's supposed to go to communities most harmed by the war on drugs. So, that's still a fight that I'm fighting. I'm planning another social equity forum here soon. I'll be at the Ohio Cannabis Expo in about a week with Ohio Cannabis Live, Anthony Riley. Shout out to Anthony Riley. I know a lot of people have a lot of feelings about that. He did get a lot of sponsorships from, industry companies, OCAN companies. I am speaking on a social equity panel on Friday night, Friday evening, and then I'll be also on a athletes and cannabis panel featuring Sean Smith, former Cincinnati Bengals player, 10-year NFL vet, finished with the Kansas City Chiefs. He also has his own cannabis brand. So we're going to be talking about just sports, athletes, and cannabis from the angle of football, NFL, lifestyle, obviously pain, recovery, things like that, cultural, awareness. And then we have Jabari Shaw, who is a lawyer out of Cincinnati, a cannabis lawyer, intellectual property lawyer, who will be helping moderate that panel as well. So make sure you guys check it out. If you want, hit me in the DMs on Instagram, Ohio_cannabis_ book. I'll get you guys my discount code for tickets. Matter of fact, I'll share that with you right now. Hey, Harper, can you go open the garage, please? All right, let me see what my discount code is real quick for you. Yeah, so my code, is it on here? Thought he gave me a code on there. Yeah, so my code is OCR25. Discount code for tickets for the Ohio Cannabis Expo. So www.ohiocannabisexpo.com. Use code OCR25. OCR25. Here's the flyer for our panel. Sorry for the graininess. Let me see if I can. Background setting. Clear that up for y'all. So here's the panel right here. Got Sean Smith, again, 10-year NFL veteran, Cincinnati Bengals, Kansas City Chiefs, Jabari, NIL, corporate attorney, cannabis attorney, and then myself, founder of Athletes in Cannabis. I also founded Athletes in Cannabis, which is a platform basically connecting athletes and cannabis. We need stronger testing for all cannabis, especially medical, for sure. And I mean, we only got 6 testing laboratories in the entire state. You know what I mean? So we need more testing for smaller growers, things like that. $100K a year for their licenses, for sure. Wasted money. Yeah. So, you know, but if some of these people got money, right? They got connections, they got relationships, they got private equity funders, you know. Actually, Jason Cabus, he's on my board for my nonprofit, Green Environmental Outreach, full transparency. So we've worked with him a few times in terms of just, you know, in the grassroots lane. And he was a part of Ohio Clean Leaf, and then I think they separated. So his company was Diamond Sciences, and he separated from his investors. Now he's just a standalone processor. So again, you know, the weeds of things, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not somebody that's super tapped in to a lot of this stuff, like politically. Like I've been a stay-at-home dad the last 9 years. And so I found my way into the cannabis industry because of the ancillary market. I decided I'll do media, right? So I'll do media, I'll do events, I'll do education, I'll do awareness, I'll do advocacy, because again, I don't have 100K, you know, for a damn license. You know what I mean? Like, and I wasn't willing to go to my people I do know that have money, because I do understand it is a high cash intensive business. I'm not a grower either, you know what I mean? So, but culturally, I understand, you know, the culture of cannabis, especially in my community, and what the harms have been in terms of politically over policing. Obviously, the narrative in our community is still that cannabis is bad. Cannabis is a gateway drug. Cannabis makes you lazy. Cannabis stinks. So, you know, I have tried to appeal to my community. I don't know about other people's communities, you know what I mean? So I know, coming from a Black family, coming from the church, coming from over policing, you know, being a star athlete in college, that, you know, a lot of people, there's a lot of narratives around weed, but a lot of people can't do what I did as a professional athlete, as a collegiate athlete. And I consumed cannabis the entire time I was in college, you know what I mean? Starting in high school. I went to a college preparatory high school in Washington, D.C., where, again, the academic curriculum was very rigorous. You know what I mean? So you had to be smart. You had to be, you know, all the things. But I realized early on that I didn't want prescription drugs to lead me down the wrong path. I didn't want alcohol to lead me down the wrong path. And I found cannabis. And I realized that cannabis did a lot of the things that, you know, pharmaceuticals did. And then I got my degree in healthcare administration from Ohio University, where I studied the Western medical healthcare system through a business lens and an administrative lens. And nowhere in my studies did I learn about cannabis or the endocannabinoid system when we studied, you know, anatomy and stuff like that. So again, as a football player, you're literally a drug mule for the physicians, for the trainers. You know, you're a marketing tool for big corporations, McDonald's, the insurance companies, Nike, Adidas, the media companies, and you don't get no kickback off of that. But then they want to, police, you know, how you care for yourself. You know what I mean? They want to police your mental health. They want to police your physical health. They want to police your cultural identity. And so a lot of my teammates I played with was smoking weed the night before the game, right before the game, and go out there and ball out. Now, that was something I never did. Like, I never smoked before the game. I'd smoke before practice, before training, like if we had workouts or something like that. But you know what I mean? Like, I played with dudes that was All-Americans. I was an All-American my freshman year, my redshirt freshman year. So, you know, I know, you know, they say, oh, you can't perform at, you know, using cannabis, or they were saying that it was a performance enhancing drug, right? So it was a performance enhancer, but it makes you lazy. But like, what is it? You know what I mean? But it's bad for you. So again, I appreciate you all tuning in for that. That's all I wanted to show you guys today. I am going to have a live show on Wednesday. I do have a guest that I'm going to bring on things in the cannabis space, cultural things. Might have Mike Smith on, who was running for state representative. He's a home grower as well, to talk about House Bill 611. So appreciate y'all. Peace.